Hi guys, so I am now 4 weeks postpartum and I wanted to share some great news. So our daughter Penelope Yuna Kim was born on October 19th, 2017. And it was so helpful when I was pregnant, just listening to friends and family and then also watching other YouTubers share their own experience and birth story. And so I decided that I definitely wanted to share and upload my own as well, just to have some documentation at a minimum to hopefully share with my daughter in the future. So before we get too much further, I wanted to put out a quick disclaimer. I'll be saying words like and so if you're not comfortable with words like that, or if you haven't heard those types of words or birth stories frequently, feel free to scroll on. I won't be offended. My birth story, so essentially Penelope was due on October 5th, but I had her on the 19th. So I was 42 weeks pregnant when I was induced. And my original birth plan was that I definitely wanted to go natural. I had watched a bunch of documentaries, read too many blogs, and then also just had this idea, which was great, that I wanted to go natural. But one thing that I would have done is maybe do a little bit more research on some of the other options that were out there, because I wish I had done some more research on C-sections as well. I don't think I was fully prepared. So that happened, and so I was 42 weeks pregnant, and during that time, from around 39 weeks to 42 weeks, I had tried everything to try and get through natural labor. So things like drinking tea, walking, going up and down stairs. I did acupressure, castor oil. I think I even did a labor dance. So, but nothing really worked. So I went into the hospital on October 18th at around 9 p.m. And after doing all the paperwork and everything, I think it was about 11 p.m., where they put the balloon catheter as well as the pill inside my cervix. And so that was to essentially get my cervix opened from 1 centimeter to 4. So since around week 38 or so, I was dilated 1 centimeter. And so the balloon was in my cervix from around 11 p.m. to around 4 a.m. So I was successfully dilated to 4 centimeters by then until 4 a.m. And the pill was, I think, to help induce contractions. And so the pill just dissolves right there in your cervix. But at 4 a.m., the doctors, they took the balloon out. And let me tell you, putting the balloon in my cervix was probably one of the most painful things that was part of labor. It was really painful. And so I wasn't fully prepared for that. It was quick, but at the same time, I think I was really surprised. So just FYI, if you have to go down that route. And so by 4 a.m. I was at 4 centimeters. By 8 a.m. I was at 6 centimeters dilated. And so right after they took out the balloon, they put me on Pitocin at level 2. Again, by 8 a.m. I was dilated to 6 centimeters, which was great. I was progressing great. But I couldn't get past 6 centimeters. And so by around 11 a.m., I was at Pitocin level 8. And it was very painful. And so kudos to all of those mamas out there if you did natural birth. I definitely appreciate all of the labor and the pain that, or if you didn't feel any pain, then that's great. But the labor that you went through, it was really painful. And so I just remember that, I was yelling to the nurse and to my husband. I think I was making like animal noises. It was so painful. And so by 11 a.m., and before then, the doctors kept on asking me, do you want an epidural? Do you want an epidural? And I kept on saying, not yet, no. But by 11 a.m., I was like, I need the epidural. And so they put the epidural in my spine, and it was like a little pinch, but then my legs, maybe after like 10-15 minutes, they started feeling numb and tingly. So it's not like I couldn't feel anything, but they kind of felt tingly. Until that time, I was also because I took Pitocin, I was hooked up on the monitors. So I had two belts on, one to monitor the baby's heart rate and then one to monitor my contractions. And then I was also GBS positive, so I was hooked up to the IV, some antibiotics as well that I think they put in you every 4 hours. But I was still able to kind of walk around the bed, get up and, try and lean by the wall and just try and walk around a little bit. So that was great. So by that time, around 11 a.m., it was really helpful I got the epidural, because then I was able to rest a little bit. So again, before then, it was just excruciating pain. And I was still at 6 centimeters though. And so the doctor later came in and she was like, okay, we're gonna up you to 12 level Pitocin and see what happens, right? And by that time, my contractions, so the Pitocin is supposed to artificially create these contractions for you, and the contractions were 2 minutes apart. And when I didn't have the epidural, it was really hard because you basically get no break in between contractions. And so, I would have this peak, right, of pain, and then it would go down, and then after 2 minutes it would just go back up again. And so it was just really exhausting. And so after I got the epidural, the doctor came in and she was like, okay, Leslie, you're still at 6 centimeters. Let's take off the external monitor for contractions and do an internal monitor instead. And so what that means is that they put in, I think it's another catheter or something. They put something else into your cervix just to make sure that they're monitoring the contractions more accurately. And then the doctor also broke my water. There are no nerves in the amniotic sac, and so that didn't hurt at all. So it was just like a gush of water that came out. And so I was able to rest a little bit after that, which was great. So I think from around noon to maybe 1:30, I actually took a nap because I couldn't feel a lot of pain. I was still having the contractions every 2 minutes at level 12, but it was a lot better than before when I didn't have the epidural. And so around 2 p.m. the doctor came in and said, okay, Leslie, I know that you wanted to give birth vaginally, but if we don't see more progression from you, I was still 6 centimeters, we're gonna have to think about C-sections. And so she said, I'm gonna come in and monitor again, check your cervix level at around 3:30. If nothing has happened, then we really need to seriously think about C-sections. And so, I was just praying with my husband, that I would open up and, just feel a bit more relaxed. But 3:30 came and I was still at 6 centimeters. And so essentially I was at the same dilation from 8 a.m. around 4 p.m. So at that time, doctor came in and said, okay, this needs to happen. We need to go into surgery because we're giving you more and more Pitocin. You're not opening up. It's not good for the baby. It's not good for you either. I was like, okay, I trusted my doctor. I did a lot of research before I chose my practice and my doctor. So I was like, okay, let me trust you. And so I was like, okay, we're going to do this. The baby's going to come out. We're going to do it via C-section and, it's going to be great, right? So at that time, they cleaned me up, started getting me ready for surgery. And I went into the surgery room. Before we started talking about surgery, it was just Andy, my husband, a nurse, and the doctor who would come in every couple of hours or so. So it was pretty, I would say, peaceful. But once we said, okay, we're doing surgery, all of these residents started coming in, other doctors, more nurses. So it got a little bit hectic. And so I was a little confused why there were so many people there. But they eventually wheeled me into the surgery room. And I remember telling one of the residents, she was like, do you have any questions? Is there anything that I can help with? And I was like, yeah, can I listen to some music in here? And she was really surprised. And so I was like, oh, do people not want to listen to music and feel relaxed in the surgery room? And so we ended up listening to the Beatles, I think. So that was funny. Once I got to the surgery room, they gave me some more of the epidural. So, originally the epidural, I didn't feel anything from my waist down. but then they added it to be, I think, from my chest down. And then they also kind of cleaned me up, and then the doctor essentially told me, oh, okay, we're gonna get started. And so my husband was on my side of the curtain, and so I want to say the surgery lasted for about 30 to 45 minutes. I was not prepared for some of the pain that I felt, and so I always heard that you would feel pressure, and it wasn't so much the pressure that kind of caught me off guard. I think I definitely felt some pain up here, like towards my chest. And so I remember I was yelling because I was in so much pain, and the doctors, they were like, stop yelling, you're gonna be okay. And I was like, I can't not stop yelling because I'm in so much pain, right? Because I feel like I could feel things that were going on inside my body, which did not feel pleasant at all. It was kind of like sharp pains. And so that went on, and I think that went on for about 30 to 45 minutes. The sharp pains eventually went away. But yeah, so when our daughter was born, the doctor, I remember her yelling, okay, Dad, stand up. And so Andy, my husband, he stood up, and she was born. And so he started snapping pictures. And so it was just, this high of emotion. I wasn't able to hold my daughter right away, which, kind of sucked, but it was really because I wasn't strong enough. So right after she was born and when they started cleaning me up, I started vomiting, and it was actually pretty bad. And I don't know, it might have been a side effect from the epidural, or it might have just been because they were moving around my intestines, I think, and stuff inside my body. Something. And actually, I'm very sensitive to nausea, so I had a really bad first trimester. I was throwing up all the time. So anyways, I started vomiting, and I remember the doctor, they had this little like container, which I think a lot of women do vomit, and so I was vomiting into this little container. I vomited 3 times. The first time wasn't that much, but the second time it was like so much, and so I was so surprised. And I remember thinking, why am I vomiting? Nobody told me about, I didn't know this was gonna happen. So like, I was also confused about that. But by that time, so when I was getting cleaned up, my husband, they told him to leave the room so they could clean me up, since it's supposed to be a sterile environment. And then they were also cleaning up my daughter. She was right next to me, but I wasn't able to hold her. And at that time, so then my husband, he went and he got a private room for us. I was just waiting to get cleaned up, and then I started crying, I remember, and my husband was at that point not in the surgery room. I was kind of sobbing, I was crying, and not because I was, obviously sad. It was just such a big wave of emotion. I was so happy. We had been trying to have a baby for 2 years, and so, it's just a really emotional moment thinking about it right now. So that was really amazing. And I remember one of the doctors, she was saying, why are you crying? And I was like, because I'm so happy. And I was like, I'm crying, I'm ugly crying, but I'm really so happy. And so that was just a really amazing moment. And so after that, they wheeled me out to the recovery room, and then my husband came back, and then finally they brought our daughter out to us, and that's when I started breastfeeding, and there were some other families and babies next to us as well, and so we could hear the other babies. And so it was just kind of funny because each baby, they were all kind of, they're brand new babies, so they were kind of crying, whimpering, feeding, and so it was just interesting to be going through that with other people. And so yeah, and then that was October 19th. She was born at 4:33 p.m. She was 7 pounds 3 ounces, and her height was 21.6 inches. She was tall for her weight, I would say. And I tell people that makes sense because I know that she was kicking against my ribs when she was inside my belly. But we're so happy she's here, and I can't wait to share this with her in the future. So my next video, I'm definitely looking forward to sharing a little bit more about baby budgeting. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, talk to you guys soon. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment, like the video, and also don't forget to subscribe. All right, thanks. Bye.
All the stars overhead us more to imagine. Eyes wide open, letting in all the magic that's about to happen. There's no end to where we go.